Okay, for the record, just for that sake, we'll do a introduction. Today's date is May the 17th, 2019. The time is 10:05 a.m. We're at the White County Sheriff's Office in Cleveland, Georgia, and present are Shane Birt, Phil Hudgens, Mike Walsingham, and Bob England. This is a follow-up interview to a previous interview that occurred on April 30th, in which we'll be discussing crimes involving Billy Sunday Birt, Shane's dad, and others. And this interview was requested to provide additional information. And Shane, if you would just begin.
Daddy told me a story a long time ago, and for a long time I thought it was Durham, North Carolina, but it was not Durham, North Carolina. It was a family named Durham in North Carolina.
Okay.
This was the case that Daddy told me that when they got there it had started snowing, but while they was there, said the snow fell so hard they almost didn't make it out. And the man was a car salesman, and there was 3 of them. And I know all 3 of them were killed, and it was Daddy, Bob Jean, Billy Wayne, and Charlie, the ones that was there.
Okay, now let's just for a moment, let's identify those 4 people by their full name.
Okay. It was my daddy, Billy Sunday Birt,
Okay.
Bob Jean Gaddis, Billy Wayne Davis, and Charlie Reed.
Okay. And they were the persons who committed the crime.
They were the persons who committed the crime.
And how many victims were there?
There was 3.
3 victims. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Go ahead.
And evidently, what ticked Daddy off about the crime should have never been committed, because the money that was supposedly there wasn't there. You know, the people didn't have much at all.
Okay.
And, you know, or what they're supposed to have at the house was not there.
Okay. How did your father get the information about these people having money?
It was either a nephew or a son-in-law. Or might have been both.
Who talked to who?
Who talked to Daddy.
Okay. Who talked to Daddy about Daddy being Billy Sunday Birt, about these people having a large sum of money.
Or keeping money at the house.
Okay. So the purpose of going there was to rob them?
To rob them.
Okay. And you said they did not have the money?
They did not. They had some money, but Daddy said it was nothing.
Okay. And now, was this in a residence or a business?
This was in a residence.
And this was in North Carolina?
North Carolina.
Where there was a heavy snow?
They almost didn't make it out because of the snow.
Okay. And the family's name that was killed was Durham?
Durham.
I'm assuming D-U-R-H-A-M?
Durham. I would say.
Durham, okay. Do you know what town or what area of North Carolina?
No, just in the mountains.
In the mountains, okay. Do you know what time frame this would have occurred in, approximately what year?
I would say 72, early 73.
Okay, so 72, 73, because your dad was incarcerated at 74.
That's right.
Now, did he say how the people were killed?
No, I took it to be about like the Wren's couple.
Okay. Now tell me what that means by like the Wren's couple.
Probably tied and either strangled or, you know, just something to get the information out of them, tortured.
Tortured, okay, that's the word we were trying to determine. Tortured to tell where the money was.
That's right.
Now, did he describe the victims to you as far as what the race? Were they white?
They were white.
How about male or female?
You had Mom, I took it to be the husband and wife and adult kid.
Husband and wife and adult kid. Did they say that the gender of the kid was it male or female?
Don't know.
Don't know. Okay. And this was a resident. You believe it to be a residence?
I know it was resident.
Okay. Did they say how much money they did end up getting?
No, but it was whatever it was. It couldn't have been much.
Okay. Did he ever tell you how the people were killed, the method used to kill them?
No, sir. No, sir.
But you're assuming based on what happened at Rims and also what happened in Winder that when people had money and he went there and robbed them, but they didn't tell them they were tortured them.
That's right.
Okay.
And these people here, I know it's a gory detail, but you're going to find a family that's got their fingernails snipped. I know for a fact that Daddy didn't tell me that and to mislead.
Yeah, well, let me tell you, you are absolutely correct because I stand corrected. When I told you I didn't recall that from the Fleming, the autopsy revealed that. So that confirms and verifies what your father told you.
Yeah.
Because you told me in the previous interview, if it wasn't the Flemings, it was someone else, because that's a detail he told me, and that's something I would remember.
Yeah.
That I think you said scissors
Scissors
were forced up on
it and it's snipped.
And snipped, yeah, as part of the torture.
That's right.
Yeah.
And I would say then, if they did Rand, you might want to check these people up here.
In North Carolina.
In North Carolina.
Okay.
But, and that's what I was telling Phil coming up here, is there's a lot of my information that's broken. But the reason it's broken, you know, my wife or my kids would get up and they'd go to the vending machine or go to the bathroom and Daddy would talk.
Right.
And then when they'd come back, he'd just shut up.
Right.
And if he didn't get the opportunity to say it again, that was just the end of the conversation. He just didn't.
Right. So, well, as you told me too, these conversations occurred over some 30 years.
Yes, sir.
Because they started when you were 16,
Yep.
and they ended when your dad died.
That's right.
Which was 2 years ago. So we're looking at right at
30 years.
30 years of bits and pieces of conversation. In that 30-year period,
That's right.
how many times would you have visited your dad?
Oh, hundreds.
Hundreds.
Yeah.
And usually when he would talk to you about crimes that he had committed or others had committed with him, it was in bits and pieces.
Just in bits and pieces.
And primarily when you were alone with him.
That's right.
Because he wouldn't talk with.
He wouldn't talk in front of women and kids.
Yeah, I understand. He had an interesting code about him. You know, it was like we said, we all find it unusual, if that's the right word, that here's a caught trap killer, but yet he had certain
Morals and codes.
codes and values that he stood by. In one, he didn't believe in talking to the police about anything.
Daddy said Franklin Thornton come see him one time.
Who was the sheriff of Walton County many years ago.
And he told Daddy, he said that, Billy, he said, if you'll just tell us what we know to be true, he said, I can help get you out of here. Yeah. And Daddy told him, he said, man, I wish I could help you, but he said, I don't know anything else. Everything else just be lies.
Yeah, yeah. He's an interesting person, to say the least. Yeah, I remember distinctly, and you've heard this too, that I had killed nobody. That was his famous words to you while he smiled at you. Do you recall any other out-of-state cases?
Not right now, but
Mike, do you have anything you want to ask him about that North Carolina case that he just described? That's something we should be able to find.
That would be, I mean, you say mountains, but I guess that kind of
Half the
totals,
state,
yeah, that's,
the western half of the
yeah,
state.
which would be consistent if it was on this side.
And with the snow too, and falling,
Yeah.
it would require mountains for it to, for a foot of snow to fall in a day or a short time, when they almost got trapped. So I think the time frame, the early 70s, that amount of snow in a short amount of time, and 3 victims in a residence.
Yeah, I think that's good detail that we can work
well,
on that.
the man owned the car dealership.
That's right, that's another thing
That's
too.
another good point.
Yeah.
You know, I asked you a question, and I want you to rethink this. I just wonder, you told me, you said a relative of that family is the one that provided the information to, you said a nephew or somebody like that
Yeah.
provided the information.
And see, and when I started talking to Phil, all the stories are jumbled
Right.
for the most part. And there for the longest time, I thought that it was a nephew or son-in-law of the Wren's victims that set them up, but it wasn't. So that means it was a nephew of the son-in-law of another story, and all these stories are about in the same
Right.
time frame.
In the Wren's case, Carswell Tapley is the one that put that whole crime in motion by giving the information to Leisure, who in turn gave it to Davis, and then Davis to Birt. So it was that linkage. And you said something interesting to me that made me think. That Wren's case is almost a template. I was trying to look for the right word as to how crimes were committed when people had money. And that information was put into the hands of your dad. And then he would take some of his associates and they would go in and rob the people. In what we term now to be a home invasion. It's basically just force your way in, torture the people, get their money, kill them so there's no witnesses. And you could almost say any case that resembles that would be a case to look at.
Well, this case here, it was right around the Wren's case, because it was just shortly before. It had to be shortly before. But what I'm saying is both of these. My memory is both of them was told to me near about the same time. It might have been the same visit or something like that.
Well, they're very similar.
Yes.
You have more than one victim. You have information that they had money. You had forced entry. You had torture, and you had death. But yeah, it's very interesting because I'm seeing that commonality in these cases, and that tells me something. It tells me that any open case in the southeastern United States would be something to look at. Almost put this out in a bulletin. In the time frame, you told me this, and I just elaborated on it, but you said that even some of your dad's associates would deal with him as we got later into this, into the 72, 73, and ultimately 74, because he was
too far gone.
He was too far gone. My term is he was out of control. And he told me this out of his own mouth. When he would take RJS's black beauties speed, amphetamine, and stay up for 3, 4, 5 days at a time. He was just wild.
Yeah.
And do you remember those days?
No, but I was just 18 months old when my daddy got locked up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Stonywood.
Stonywood.
His book reflects on the fact that he kind of would go a lot of places and do a lot of things with your dad when he was a little guy. He was born at 65.
Now, Stoney was born, that's Montana. I think Stoney
59.
59.
59. Oh, okay. Stoney's quite a bit older.
Yeah. So Stoney's the reason that the deputy's car was blown up.
Right, because he got stopped at 13 for driving, and then they had to give the keys back and apologize
That's right.
for that. Yeah.
There was one police car that was blown up because the policeman had asked one of Billy's girlfriends for a date.
That's all a lie.
That's not true.
That's what you said last time.
Yeah, that's all a
The
lie.
real story was the story that you...
That's right.
Yeah.
And that's important that all of us have received information that, quote, unconfirmed, and a lot of things I'm sure were thrown in at this time that well, if it happened, Billy Birt had to have done it. Because we went through a list of cases, and you were quick to tell me that haven't heard anything about that, don't know anything about that. And it could be attributed to Billy Birt, or it could be just in the time frame that people thought it was Billy. But I can tell you one thing: if dynamite was used, Billy Birt did it. Because dynamite, things blown up with dynamite, I remember those days well, was not common. That's just not a common instrumentality of a crime.
Except for the DA, except for the solicitor's car.
Well,
They thought that, though, didn't they?
I would say they got the dynamite from Dad.
Yeah.
And because they had to. Where Daddy got used to dynamite, before Daddy turned to the life of crime, he worked in rock quarries. And Daddy was a really good operator. And he got
familiar.
He was familiar, and what he would do back then, the dynamite wasn't, like it is today, where every stick that you use has got to be accounted for.
Right.
And so he would just go to Buford or go back to Athens, where he knew it was, and steal him 5 or 6 cases, or pay somebody there and get it.
Yeah, well, then they know he was going to use it, when he was going to use it.
That's right.
Let me do this. Do either of you have questions about the North Carolina case?
I got a question. How did you determine it was not Durham, North Carolina, but the name was Durham, the people? How did you?
Well, I was sitting there thinking, and it just come to me. That's just like the Renz couple or the Kilgores. I never knew. So.
What's happened is that 30 years of conversation with your dad, you've kind of categorized it, indexed it, and periodically your memory kind of gets a little bit more specific and get related.
Well, when Daddy would talk to you, he would say, he'd pronounce a word, and then he'd say, "Do you understand what I said?" And a lot of times he'll make you say it back to him.
Because of his speech.
Because of his speech. And so there's a lot of times that, you just driving down the road, and I don't know why, but, just something that he said just pops back into your head.
Well, like I said, it's just, when you started talking about cases, things reminded me and popped in my head, and then what Mike and I try to do is take it all and piece it together and overlay it and see and then retrieve old records, and then, as you can imagine, and that's what I want to get to next, I want to get to some of these out-of-state cases and kind of go through them one at a time and see, because you can imagine how difficult it is when you tell me my dad, Billy, son of Birt, killed somebody in Texas, a man who was trembling and shaking, and ended up your dad having the same problem with Parkinson's. And this happened in the early 70s, but I have no idea, but Texas has got probably, 20, 25, 30 million people. That's going to be a hard one to find. I'm not saying we can't find it. There's some details you've given us, but I want to see, again, all this for the purpose of just to close the case, but let the family know, and that's your purpose and motivation too. Let the family know what happened. Let's try to go one at a time while we're together in here with these out-of-state cases.
Okay.
Let's go back to New Orleans.
Okay.
Okay. Let's go back to that case. All right. That case occurred as a result of Reese Spencer.
That's right.
Okay. Reese was from Athens, Clark County, and he was in liquor, drugs, gambling, and ran a juke joint.
That's right.
And the name of that joint was?
Back then it was RVA,
Okay.
and later on it was the Night Owl.
Right, the Night Owl. And what highway was that on?
Georgia 8 or 29,
Old 29 Highway in Athens. Okay. And what was the motivation in contracting your dad to kill these people?
It was a man and a woman. They sold dope for Reese.
Okay.
And they and I know they probably was in debt to him to start with, but what happened was they took a bunch of dope and a bunch of money and skipped town on him.
Okay.
And they found him over in New Orleans,
Okay.
Louisiana.
Right.
And he sent Daddy over there to kill him and bring back whatever they had.
Okay. Do you know if your dad took anyone with him to do that?
I don't know about that.
Okay. But he went to New Orleans to kill them and rob them of whatever drugs and money they had.
That's right.
Because they skipped out on Reese.
On Reese Spencer.
These people were from New Orleans?
I want to say these people was from here.
From here?
Yes.
But they had run and hid in New Orleans?
In New Orleans.
Okay. And he located them?
Yes, sir.
Sat down there to rob them and kill them. And this was a male and a female?
A male and a female.
These were white
people.
White people. All right. And it worked for Reese Spencer.
That's right.
And with Dad, what happened when this crime occurred? Tell me what you remember or what your dad told me.
He said while he was in the house, said that somebody knocked on the door. I take it somebody wanting dope or drugs. Daddy said they actually went to the door and told them they couldn't come in right now. And they told us if you can't keep us out. Daddy told us that we definitely don't want to come in here right now. And they basically told us that we're coming.
They insisted.
They insisted, and Daddy said, just come on in. And Daddy just told me just nonchalantly, he said, just 2 turned into 4.
Okay. Meaning?
2 murders turned into 4 murders.
4 murders. Now, the 2 that came to the door, were they male, female?
I don't know about that.
You don't know?
No.
Okay. But there were 4 murdered in a house in New Orleans.
That's right.
Okay. And did he say how he killed them?
I say shot him.
Okay. Shot them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. That stands, it is reasonable because you would have to do that to control 4 people. Well, he'd already killed 2 when the 2 arrived. So he killed 2 more. 2 turned into 4. Okay. Did he say if he got any drugs or money out of the house?
Didn't tell me nothing about that. I do know that was the last people he killed before he went to prison.
So this had to have been in what year?
Just, I'll say weeks or months before
And he went to
picked up
prison at 74.
in 74.
April of 74.
So,
Okay, just before going to prison at 74 for bank robbery.
that's right.
That was the Loganville bank robbery.
Mhm.
Okay. Where in New Orleans did this occur? What part of New Orleans?
In the French district.
French district of New Orleans.
I know that for a fact.
Okay. Do you know how much she was paid by Reese Spencer?
I don't.
Okay. Anything additional on those cases that you want to ask him before we move on to the next one?
He didn't say how he got there, did he, your dad? Like
No.
what he's driving?
No.
He didn't say.
No.
But it would have been a muscle car for sure.
It would have. It would have been a Torino or a Cyclone or something like that.
Because one thing he did was drove a fast car,
Yeah, all the time.
liked to race.
Yeah. That's the reason that the state, that's what started the State Farm, or Farm Bureau being blowed up there.
Yeah.
Right, right, because he wouldn't pay on the accident, because he was racing. Okay, we covered a case in North Carolina, we covered a case in New Orleans. What do you recall, and what could you tell me about the case in Texas?
The case in Texas, and I would say that it had to be somebody who was tied to the chances of Roysters.
Okay. The chances, or the Royster, C.W. Royster, or even Harold or Ruth Jansen.
Harold Ruth Chancey.
Ruth being Harold's mother.
That's right. Because all the pills in the pot was coming out of Mexico. I think it's probably just pills during this time. Later on it moved to pot. And they had somebody at the border, right across the border, somewhere, you know, like a safe house.
Okay.
They would bring the pills or dope in,
Right.
and then they would go to the safe house and then come straight back. They wouldn't cross the border every time.
Right.
That they would have had a safe house. And I would say that's the reason the man got so scared when he first seen Daddy, is because he knew him.
Okay.
He probably knew what that meant.
So when your dad showed up at the house, you're thinking it's probably in southern Texas around the Mexican border.
That's right.
Okay. And what time frame would this have been in? What year or years?
This was right toward the very end. So late 72, early 73.
Okay, so we're looking at 72, 73, and this man, was he the only victim in the house?
He was the only victim in the house.
And how was he killed?
He was shot.
He was shot.
Yep.
And your dad carried what type of weapon?
He carried a 38.
Okay, 38.
He said one time that in a tape that we listened to that he carried a 44. My daddy never carried a 44 Magnum. He carried a 38.
38.
The last time I heard about that gun was who had the gun was John Robert Austin's wife.
Who was the sheriff of Barrett
He
County?
was the sheriff of Barrett County.
Okay.
You will know the gun because Daddy took and cut part of the barrel off.
And this was a 38 revolver.
The 38 revolver.
Okay.
And he got it from where?
I
The
don't-
sheriff's wife or the sheriff?
No, the last time I heard the gun was taken from Daddy. But the last time I heard about the gun, John Robert Austin's wife had the gun.
And supposedly,
And
Bobby Lee Cook was the one who got the gun from her, but he denied that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He said he didn't know anything about it.
Right.
But now, I heard about the gun, it couldn't have been 7 or 8, maybe 9 years ago.
Right.
And the instantly when I knew it was Daddy's gun, I never told anybody about Diddy cutting the end of the barrel off. And so I was talking to these people that was kin to John Robert and his wife, and they was telling me about a gun and said the end of the barrel's cut off. The reason they told me the end of the barrel's cut off, they knew that I knew it was Diddy's gun.
Yeah, that's not a coincidence.
No.
There's only one gun like that.
And who was telling you this?
It was,
The sheriff's?
they was actually kin to the sheriff's wife.
Gotcha.
Now, John Robert Austin, did his son become sheriff after him?
I don't know.
I think so.
Howard Austin.
Yeah, I think it was.
Okay. And this man had Parkinson's disease?
No, he didn't have Parkinson's.
Oh, okay, he just was shaking from Durham.
When Daddy walked in, it scared him to death.
Okay, he knew what was going to happen.
He knew it right then.
Okay. But he was involved in drugs.
He was involved in drugs.
Okay. And why is it your dad killed him? Did he kill him for someone as a contract?
I would say he killed him for a contract. Daddy never really elaborated on it. The only thing Daddy said that he didn't want to kill him. He hated to kill the man.
Right.
He said that he was already there, already been paid, and couldn't back out.
I get you. Okay. And this would have been in 72 or 73. Okay. All right, that provides some detail that we can work with. Any, rather than me move forward, I want to make sure that either of you have questions to clarify that case anymore.
Did you get the impression he was by himself, or
What now?
did you get the impression he was by himself when he did that one?
I was under the impression, yeah.
I get the impression from you as well, Shane, when he traveled out of state, it was usually by himself.
It was usually by himself, yeah.
There's a lot of things conclusions you could draw, and I know it's some speculation, but it's also based on what he did and how he did it. Right, we've talked about North Carolina, we've talked about Texas.
One thing I will tell you, and I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, you didn't. You didn't.
The day that Jim Dawes was found, Daddy was in Florida.
Right, and that's when Bobby and Sonny called him to come back.
Yeah. And Daddy told him, he said, no, it sounds like y'all need to get down here. Well, it was Daddy and Charlie, and might have been Billy Wayne with them. But I know it was Daddy and Charlie already down there.
Okay.
So, the same week that Jim Dawes was found, you might want to check just those specific dates within a week, because that's where Daddy was.
And he may have been down there to do a job.
Hey, Daddy never went on vacation. Daddy absolutely never
Did he
went on
say
vacation.
where in Florida they were? Do you have any idea what, north or south?
I say it'd be north.
North Florida.
Yeah.
Okay. Right.
I'm sorry. Go ahead. I was just saying, so when Jim Dawes was found, who called?
Sonny Lee's actually called my dad and told him, said, you won't believe who just popped up, said you need to get back up here, and Daddy told him, no, it sounds like you need to get down here.
And who was down there with him on that?
Had to be Charlie Reed, because Daddy said the minute they got back to town, all of them was picked up at the same time and questioned.
And just for clarification, Mike, Jim Dawes' body was found on December the 17th of 1971. But we've covered Texas, North Carolina, New Orleans, now Florida. I wanted next to go to the state of Montana, which is the state you indicated that one of your brothers was named after, because Daddy had done a contract there. What can you tell me about that case, or what you remember?
That right there, Daddy was shot in Montana because he almost died.
Do you know whether it was with the shotgun or with the handgun?
I want to say it was with a shotgun.
That's the one he had in his shoulder.
That's right.
Still had the pellets.
Yep, he had pellets. Everybody had pellets down here too because he could squeeze them, bring them up.
Yeah. He was shot with a shotgun. Do you recall what year was Montana born?
Montana was born in 65.
65. So this would have happened in that time frame, which your dad would have been about 26 years of age in 60. No, he was born at 37.
Yep.
So now he's been about 28 years of age. 28 years of age. And he went to Montana. Did he go there to commit a contract killing?
It was a contract. I don't know who it was for or how he got that information. He never really.
Did you think he would have drove?
Yes.
Your dad did not fly?
No, he never flew.
Never flew. He drove to Montana at 65 to commit a contract killing. Did he say how he killed the person?
No, never told us that.
Did he say whether it was a man or woman?
He never told us that.
Okay. Right. And we don't know who he was contracted to do that.
No.
So we have kind of minimal, sketchy information on that one. Okay. Again, 1965. Montana's a big state.
Yeah.
Did he tell you what part of Montana, or possibly a city, or town?
I know that it was cold.
Cold. Yeah.
I do know that they near about froze to death. He said even with the heater on, it was still cold.
What month was your brother born at 65?
September.
September. Okay. Well, it was certainly start to get cold after that in Montana. All right, let's go to the Shenandoah Valley, which is yourself,
Yep.
Shane.
He never elaborated on that to me. I don't know why. Maybe it was because he didn't want me to know the case that I was named after. I don't know. But, you know, the only thing he's ever told me about it was just coming back through from doing a job. And that's what he always said. He's come back from doing a job. And he said, I stopped in Shenandoah Valley, and he said, it's the prettiest place I've ever seen.
So, based on what he told you, give me some direction from the Shenandoah Valley. You told me earlier in an interview, you said you thought it was north of that.
It was north of that.
But you don't know what state.
No.
Okay, did you even speculate or possibly consider what state it may have been?
No.
States?
And the Dad was he was different. If you ever really asked him, it doesn't matter. He wouldn't never give up nothing.
Yeah.
Ever. And you know, that's just like whenever they found the body on the mulberry, and I went to see him. If I could tell him, Daddy, they found this, then he would tell me about it. But I couldn't go in there and say, Daddy, tell me something, and him just tell me. And it seemed like every time it was on his timeline.
Yeah.
And he would tell you something, and then
Well, he wasn't going to tell you what you didn't know.
Yeah, exactly.
That's a good point. It's unbelievable you telling me this, because it makes me think of my conversation with him. You're exactly right. No, he wasn't going to volunteer anything to you. When would this have occurred? What year were you born?
71.
71. So this would have been in that time frame.
That's right.
71. North of the Shenandoah Valley, which runs through several states. That he had killed somebody on a contract.
That's right.
Did he play bad a woman?
Never give me
Did he
anything.
say how he killed them?
No kind of details at all.
Or who he killed them for?
No kind of details at all.
While we're on that, permit me to ask you, he would contract with people to kill people for them, and he did that with C.W. Royster, Reese Spencer, Lee Gilstrap, A.D. Allen, Harold Chansey, Ruth Chansey,
Yep.
and who else?
Basically, I really haven't got names, but anybody that you just named, if they had an acquaintance that they trusted, they would always turn them on to Daddy.
C.W. Royster.
C.W., yeah, C.W. or Reese, it didn't matter. Harold.
Your dad was within that circle of people, was a contract killer.
That's all he was.
And he did that for either people that we've just mentioned or trusted acquaintances of those people.
That's right.
So it's fair to say he killed for a lot of people.
A whole lot of people.
Whole lot, okay.
And most of it come through either the drug or the pill trade.
Right. And I was trying in my mind before you both arrived to, and I wanted to hear from you, not what I have to say, but your dad worked for a lot of different people to contract with them to kill people, but he also killed for revenge.
That's right.
To get back at somebody who he felt wronged him in any way.
That's right.
And he also killed for robbery.
That's right.
As well. So in essence, revenge or greed, and this is a very sensitive subject, but your dad had a lot of girlfriends.
A whole lot.
Whole lot. And anyone who he felt had wronged them or done something involving them, they were potential victims.
That's right.
Well.
Yes, sir.
What other states, Mike, can you think of besides Montana, Texas, Louisiana, north of the Shenandoah Valley, possibly Florida, North Carolina, and I know there are others, but I'm trying to, and I wanted to ask you, could you think of any other states based on your recollection?
And it's vague, but you know, Daddy's told me 100 times. He said we kill people in all 50 states. And you know, one of his girlfriends was named Geneva, and she said that Daddy told her one time, said that they were sitting at the table doing something, and she said, Billy, she said, just how many people have you killed? And said Daddy went like that and just wouldn't quit going. And she told me, she said, oh, you're lying. He said, no, I ain't lying.
Well, this is a hard number to imagine of people because I'm going to get back to where I was, but while it's on my mind, I wanted to relate it. I've reviewed the first interview we did on April the 30th. We did a total of 3 interviews that day. The first interview was 13 cases with 21 victims. The second interview, after we took a break, was 9 cases with 15 victims. And the third interview was 2 cases with 2 victims. And these were cases that your dad had told you about. These were not suspected cases
No.
or cases that we had heard about, but these are cases your father actually told you about that resulted from these 3 interviews, which ended up being 24 cases and 38 victims.
Mm-hmm.
And then now, additionally, we have covered some additional cases today in North Carolina. That case involving that robbery murder of 3 victims, parents, male, female, and a adult child, but we don't know what gender, whether it was male or female in that case. We've covered the case in Texas, we've covered the case in Montana, the Shenandoah Valley, and then others that as you said, he's committed, but that he may have told you about it bits and pieces, but you can't really, right at this moment, put a handle on it.
It seemed like when Daddy was by himself, it was all most time on a hit. You understand what I'm saying? He was
completely.
he was by himself.
Well, it's a trust factor.
Yeah.
You've got to travel, and as you and I said, I'm not putting words in your mouth. I'm telling you what you told me and what he told me himself, that he would stay up for days with pills, that he could drive to another state, kill someone, and drive home and never sleep.
He never sleep.
Never stay in a motel.
No.
Never leave a record. Never leave any witnesses. It wouldn't surprise me if he was smart enough to always pay for gas with cash.
Yeah.
Because he lasted a long time committing these crimes.
Well, he told me one time, and it was on the body that was found over at Mulberry.
Right.
He said that he, even back then, when he was waiting on the man to come back home, because evidently they was in police protection or something like that, and what happened was that he was set to testify, and so Daddy had no other recourse but just sit and wait at his house, you know, just pick a spot out in the woods and sleep back. And Daddy said even back then that he would take and smoke cigarettes or just let cigarettes burn at the crime scene. And always back then you had those filter tips that you can clip on your cigarettes. And Daddy said he would even clip those on the cigarettes to smoke because he didn't want to touch them or anything like that. So wherever he was sitting at, he would have cigarettes there. But Daddy never smoked. And Daddy said when he was questioned about this man, said the deputy asked him, said, you want a cigarette or what brand do you smoke? He said, don't smoke. And that was just there to throw him off.
Yeah, just
And it said that Daddy wore a size 10 shoe, 10 and a half. And said there were a lot of times he would pack socks in the front and the toe. He said, because if you packed them in the toe, he said, you wouldn't get the right roll. He said, if you packed them in the back, he said, you heel. He said, so if you pack them in the front and the back when you walked, and he said he would put on a size 12 or 13 shoe.
Well, in simple terms, your dad didn't talk to police, and he killed everyone who could be a potential witness against him in a crime, or potentially was going to talk to police. So he knew how to avoid detection, and then, as you said, he had these little things he did to throw police off, and what have you. Did your father drink?
Never.
Alcohol?
Never. He said that if he drank, he would drink just to be sociable. You know, if he was somewhere at a bar or something.
And
like
he didn't smoke either.
He did not smoke.
No.
I talked to Ron Angel, and he said that your dad would change the ballistics took a throw people and throw the investigators off too, that he would
Take
take
a-
some,
he'd
did
take a
something to
file.
the inside of the
He'd
head.
take a file and run down his barrel.
Yeah. He knew, I've already said it once, but don't need to repeat it, but he knew how to avoid detection. He was smart, he was clever, he was dangerous. And as you told me, the most dangerous man you ever met.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I don't know if I told y'all that last time, but when me and my wife was having trouble, and I was staying at Rick Chancey's house, where they're Randy and Bobby, and
That's quite a story. Tell it again.
and we, it was worrying my mom to death. So my oldest brother Stoney picked me up, and Norma Jean picked Jill up, and took us to see Daddy down in Jackson. And so we were sitting there, and about 5-10 minutes, and Stoney and Norma Jean got up, kissed Daddy bye, and Daddy handed Stoney a letter. Well, the letter was for Ruth. And so we sat there for about another 15-20 minutes, and Daddy was trying to do the daddy thing, trying to get his son and daughter-in-law back together. And he made the comment, he said, well, if you got to get a divorce, it's a good thing because you ain't got no kids. You don't want grandkids to divorce. And then he just looked at me just as straight as he could. And he asked me, he said, if you leave now, he said, what time will you get home? And I almost said like 3 or 4 when I got home. And he told me, he said, well, that's good. He said, when you get home, get your stuff out of the house. And I said, man, that's where you want me to get my house? I said, I got it made. I said, free rent, nice house, give us money. He said, well, let me put it to you like this. He said, if you're not out of the house by 7, if you're in there, I'm sorry. He said, but I'm going to have it blow from one end of the county to the other. He said, I ain't going to let your mama worry no more. And that was in the conversation.
You moved?
Right then. I was out by 7.
You knew.
Yeah. Yeah.
You were his blood.
I was in blood.
It didn't matter.
Didn't matter. And Daddy always told us, pardon my French, but he always told us, he said, I'd rather see you dead than be with a nigger. And he said, you ever bring one home? He said, that's it. But the letter that he sent to Ruth through Stoney, it basically told her the same thing.
Get out.
Yeah, that I was getting out of her house, and said she read it and said it'll be done. Because, there was only one person that Ruth.
What year
figured.
was that?
That was 92.
You know what's amazing? 74, 82, 74, 84, 94. That was 18 years after your dad was incarcerated.
Mm-hmm.
He still put the fear of God in people.
Oh, yeah. Well, and I asked Dad about that one time, and he was talking about, my sister Ann, she married a guy by the name of Bobby Reeves. And, Reeves. And it was a deal where it was a real bad marriage. And Bobby, he just wasn't no good. Well, he wasn't going to give Ann a divorce. So Daddy told Ann to come see him. Why, we was down there, I went with Ann, and Daddy told her, he said, honey, so when you get back home, said Bobby will be gone. He said, he ain't dead. He said, but the divorce papers will be on the table. And she said, Daddy, she said, he ain't going to give me a divorce. He said, yeah, he'll give you a divorce. And we got back home, the divorce papers were signed on the table. And later on, I asked Daddy about that, and I said, Daddy, I said, how in the world could you steal? And he told me, he said, son, he said, I work for 100 people. He said, all those people owe me everything they got now. He said, I get in touch with them, and he said, I need a favor. Well, Billy, we don't do that anymore. Well, guess what? I'm going to call my next friend, you just become part of the favor. And Daddy said, how can they say no to me?
Yeah, it's amazing. I knew for years and years and years that people, when he was incarcerated, still feared him.
Yeah.
From Watauga, Birt County, still feared him. what have you been able to, in your memory, remember additional that we haven't covered in terms of cases or details?
Not much, and it's like I told you when me and Stoney, we just now got back reacquainted.
Right.
And I took Stoney a tape that I had and everything like that, and he was telling me stuff that Daddy had told him, and I told him stuff that Daddy had told me, and we was just talking back and forth, and you know, not just to jog my memory, but you know, you go around Stoney and you gonna hear it no matter what you want to do or not, you know. So
let me ask you, have you been able to mend that fence?
I've been able to mend it, but Stoney's the type of person, he's always looking for the con. And so when I come back around, it can't be for brotherly love. He's wondering what the Shane want from me. And it's simple what I want from him now. And I've already told him I just want my mom to have one more Christmas and Easter with all the family. You know, and that's what I told him. The last thing Daddy ever told him on this earth, he told me on the phone, told Stoney, whatever it takes to get my family back together. And that's what I told Stoney. I said, you know, you talk about wanting to do for Daddy. The only thing Daddy wanted was his family back together. That's what we.
Now your mom's still alive.
She is.
She's how old?
She was 77 yesterday.
Yesterday. And her health
is real good.
Real good. Now tell me about the 5 siblings, the names and their ages.
Which I'm the baby.
You're
I'm
Shane.
the youngest. I'm Shane.
How old?
I'm 47.
All right, next.
You got Norma Jean.
Norma Jean.
And
how old?
She is be 50 this year.
50, okay.
Then you got Ann.
Ann.
No, you got Montana.
Montana.
Montana's 53.
53, okay.
And then Ann is 56.
56.
And Stoney is 59. He'll be 60 this year.
60 this year.
And he might already turn 60.
And he's the oldest.
He's the oldest.
And you describe Stoney as being a treasure of information.
A treasure.
He knows more than you do.
Yeah. Now, the only thing that I ask out of this whole ordeal,
right,
is this right here. If Stoney does talk to you and opens up and shows you, you know, the papers and everything he's got, the only thing I ask is copy them and give them back to him. You know, anything that's taken from the family, I ain't got nothing. I do have a shotgun of my dad's.
Sawed off.
Yeah.
It's the one he carried right beside it.
Yeah.
And when he rolled around.
Yep.
Yep.
And I do got that, but that's the only thing that I do have.
Right.
But Stoney, Stoney's got more about Daddy than anybody could ever know.
Yeah. And the one thing I want you to know that you already know.
Yeah.
But I'm gonna say it. Stoney's book almost made your dad out to be a folk hero.
That was his full intent.
And he described your dad as Robin Hood. That basically this good man who on occasionally did bad things, but he never described in any detail what those bad things were.
No.
I don't think he ever used once in the book the word that your dad was a murderer.
Or torture.
Or torture, or just that he did, you know, he robbed a few banks, he did a few bad things, but he was, you know, the best man that's ever lived.
Yeah.
And it's going to be hard, even though he knows all this, it's going to be hard for him to talk about those details to anybody. Never met Stoney in my life and say, well, how in the world are you coming up with that? Am I right or wrong?
100% right.
And I'm not going to talk to him until you, because of what you've done for me, until you tell me now's the right time to approach it. But that book is what he wants people to know. I don't know if he ever wants people to know this.
The truth of it, no. And I don't know if I told y'all this last time, but my sister, Norma Dean, she was county commissioner for a while.
Right.
And she got in touch with the parole board and went to the parole board on behalf of my dad. And she got there, and she evidently went through this field, and they asked her, said, do you know who your dad is?
Yeah.
And she said, sure.
Yeah.
And so she said about 5 or 10 minutes later, they brought out a folder or a box and said, well, let us introduce you to the man. Well, Norma Jean called me on the way home, and she asked me, she said, Shane, do you know everything Daddy's ever done? I said, nope. And I said, thank God I don't. I said, because what I do know has scarred me. I said, hurt me. And she said, well, I didn't know nothing. I said, well, you're a girl. And she said, well, I'm going to go see him. He's going to tell me everything he's ever done. I said, good luck with that. And I said, because that just ain't going to happen. Well, later on, a month or so later, me and Daddy was talking. He called me. He evidently called Norma Jean shortly after this, and she jumped on him with all 4 feet. And Daddy asked me, he said, son, he said, can you believe she told me I was going to tell her everything I done? He said, I can't remember everything that I done, much less going to tell my daughter. Yep.
That's another thing. That's another part of that code value system that your dad put out. He wasn't going to tell a woman anything.
You're not going to tell a woman, no.
No.
And
You know, he just, that's just part of who he was.
Yep.
And he wasn't going to tell Betty Beth unless you were part of that inner circle. And the way he told you was, you're going to go with me and you're going to do it with me.
That's
and
right.
then you can't tell anybody.
That's right.
He was a unique
Well,
individual.
even with us, I don't think I got a full story from one end to the other.
Oh, no. You've gotten part of what he did, and Stoney's got another part. Neither one has the whole story.
No.
There's something about Billy Birt type people. They're going to tell you what they want you to know, but that's it. And there's only going to be a select few people that it counts. He was very good friends with Earl Lee. He didn't tell Earl Lee everything.
No. I wish my Uncle Bob was still alive, because like the Carolyn Cooper, I know exactly what happened to her.
Yeah.
Because my Uncle Bob was standing there.
Right.
And, and my Uncle Bob, he had no reason to lie.
Yeah.
Period.
Right.
But I do not think that I cannot say that any of the hard torture murders happened before late 71, early 72.
Right.
Because my Uncle Bob's own words was, him and Ray went to prison. They got back out. He did one job with Daddy and told Daddy, said, I'm done.
Yeah, he was different. Your dad had become different.
And Uncle Bob told me, said, at the same time, the largest bank robbery my daddy ever did, I think he might have got like $300,000. They brought the money back to my grandmother's house, my daddy's mom. And Uncle Bob said they had it laid out on the king-size bed, and he said it covered the whole bed. And said that my Uncle Bob walked in, and Daddy looked at him, and he said, you wish you'd have went with us now, don't you? I said, Daddy, really don't. He said, no. He said, don't bother me a bit. He said, Corinne went right back out.
Yeah.
What bank was that?
I don't know.
But
Uncle Bob went with him. But it was a real large. Uncle Bob said it was $300,000.
When they got out of prison and they saw what had happened to your dad, it scared the both of them.
Yeah.
Because he had gone from before that, he had gotten speed, he had gotten dangerous, and he had gotten out of control. And he was, I used the word spiral, but he was going down fast.
Well, you know, he shot Ray. He shot his own brother 6 times.
I know.
And,
That happened where?
at Daddy's Pool Hall.
Well, that's what I thought, pool hall, yeah.
And,
Yeah.
said that, Bobby told me, said Ray come over and,
Ray was the one that was good with his hands.
good with his fist. And Ray could actually whoop Daddy. But Daddy would never let that happen.
Oh, no. He would whip his butt, he would
And,
kill him afterwards, yeah.
well, Bobby said Ray come up and told him, said that what he was fixing to do, and he told me, Bobby told me, he said, son, he said, I did my best to talk him out of it. He said, son, he said, Billy's not your brother anymore. He said, I don't know who he is. He said, but he's not our brother.
Yeah. Well, look what he said to you about that down at Root's house. He said, if you're not out of it, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. And there's not a shadow of doubt in my mind. If we did that with a black person, that was something he wouldn't tolerate.
Yeah, you both did that.
Yep.
Yeah. Goes back to that code, that set of values, that way he lived his life, and it was hard to imagine, but it was that way.
Mm-hmm.
One of the cases that we've got so many cases to research, these out-of-state cases, very difficult.
Yep.
First of all,
Well,
record keeping back then wasn't anything like it is now.
Yeah, no computers, no.
Well, in the details in reports, I was talking to Mike before you guys got here, the details in reports now, just incredible, where you could go back and retrieve things. But in some of these, you know, when we're talking about states the size of Texas, the size of Montana, New Orleans, that's a little different. We can be specific, you know, we can
Well,
say.
the one in New Orleans, it was within, I say it was within a month of Daddy being locked up.
Yeah, we can be good with that. The French District, New Orleans, we know the time, we know 4 victims. The Atlanta case, we know there were 4 or 5 black men, because we think 4 were killed, and we don't know about the 5th one that was running. And then he killed a female after, we don't know what happened to her after that, but and we know the approximate time frame. But when you've got multiple victims, and you're able to say the year and the location, you've got a very, very good chance of identifying them. Very good chance. Do you have any questions?
Yeah, have you seen Stoney's second book, which has his dad's diary in it?
I don't think so.
When did that come out?
Huh?
Has that been out for a while? The second book?
When did it come out?
I don't know.
You don't know about that one?
No.
What's the name of
I
it?
got a copy of it.
What's the name of it?
I think it's similar to the first book's name.
Rock Solid.
Rock Solid, his own words, in his own words, or something like that. And it's from his diary.
I read Rock Solid, and I was very, I've been, and Shade has allowed me to be very candid and straightforward about his dad. Stoney memorialized Billy and made him out to be just an outstanding man. And I'm not saying he didn't have that side. I'm not saying that. But I'm saying the other side was never really talked about.
Right.
And so I don't know if there was any benefit in reading that book.
Well, for me now personally, I felt it was beneficial, you know, only because, you know, you always, everything a spin can be put on it. You know what I'm saying? Anything can be. I mean, when I take a case file to the DA, I know that the defense is in that case file as well as the prosecution, you know.
Sure.
But to me, it kind of gave an idea, like I'm very fascinated with the fact that you're doing it now. You know, this book will be from the viewpoint of your mother, you know what I mean? But I kind of took it as, you know, and I read every word of it, but, you know, that was from his viewpoint. Of course, you got to take it from, you got to understand what his viewpoint is, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Sony's viewpoint. But to me, it was kind of enlightening, even though, you know, with you, Chief, it was a lot of it, you know, was twisted in his way, but I did feel like that it was, you know, interesting to me to read, which is why I would like to know, can you buy that book, or was that book published?
Somebody from White County loaned me that book, and this,
Jerry Wright.
no, I probably shouldn't say the name because I called them and spoiled it.
Don't say it.
Wanted to talk to them about
I don't
it.
mean-
It's not published,
They
but-
know Stoney, and he gave them a personalized
Yeah.
inscription in front of the book, and they loaned me both of the books. And
Well, it's
and then I called them to see if they would talk to me.
You can buy it
They never
at
called me
corner
back,
bookstore.
so I got a feeling they
You
don't.
could buy it at Winder,
At the corner bookstore,
Oh, okay.
both of the books.
both of them.
Okay, well,
But you haven't seen the second book.
Well, I hadn't seen the second one.
You didn't know about it.
No.
but it's worth to be purchased,
Yeah.
is what he asked you.
Yeah.
At the
I
corner
think
bookstore.
so.
Yeah.
Okay.
But the thing about it is, even Daddy's opinion of himself was not the opinion that Stoney had.
Right, no, I agree.
You know, Daddy's always told me that where he was, he deserved to be.
Yeah.
And that he was absolutely the worst kind of killer there was, because he didn't have to have a reason.
Yeah.
He did it simply for money.
He was a
But that was the reason, though. Money was the reason.
Well, money, but Daddy was always honest, you know, but he was,
He was a bad man.
yeah.
And he knew it, and he particularly knew it in the end, when he, you know, truly expressed remorse for all he had done.
Yeah.
But he couldn't open that door to that room.
No.
That room contained way too much. I mean, it's unimaginable, inconceivable, and even us who have done this my whole life, my whole adult life, it's still hard to believe.
Yeah.
But it's true.
Yeah.
No.
Well, that's what Daddy told me one time, and the way he was, but he said when they found Jim Dawes, and they come back from Florida, so they pulled him into the sheriff's department. He said they was questioning them, and had all of them sitting against the wall. And said the sheriff's wife walked in there and grabbed the pictures of Jim Dawes, and come back in and said, Daddy said she had big tears rolling down her eyes, and said she just handed them the envelope. She said, I just want you to look at this. Well, she thought she was talking to somebody who had a conscience. And Daddy said he looked at the first picture, passed it down, looked at it, and passed it down, and said that he got done, and she said, what do you think about that? And Daddy told her, he said, listen, said, I don't care about the picture. He said, oh, Jim looks pretty bad right here. He said, but everyone who did this knows how to use a camera. If you give me his name and phone number, I want to get him to do a family portrait of us. and just right there, and she told him, she said, Billy Birt, she said, you're the coldest man I ever known. And she was telling the truth.
Yeah.
You know.
But it is interesting, though, to that his perspective, and then inside the organization's perspective, and then the people that are just one removed, like Stoney, for example. You know what I mean? How do people, because that's part of why people do what they do, is to basically please their peers, and it's almost a self-fulfilling prophecy. This is how these people think of me,
Yeah.
and this is, you know, and...
Well, Harold Chancey told me one time, he said that Bob Jean Gaddis put an affidavit out, sworn affidavit, about the Jim Dawes murder. And he said, son, he said, it was dead to rights. He said, I'm talking about there was nothing in there that was not accurate. Said that the sheriff pulled up, and he said, I was standing about right here in the barnyard, and he said he handed me the affidavit. And he said, I got to reading it, and he said he had to know that he had me, because of the look on my face. He said there was no way possible that I could hide it. He said, I knew I was caught. He said, I handed it back to him. He said, well, what do we do now? He said, well, just as soon as Billy signs it, he said, we're gonna come back and pick you up. Harold told me, he said, he stood there for about 5 or 6 seconds while it sunk in. He said, a big smile come across my face. He said, Billy Birt's got to sign this before it's in the count. He said, yep. He said, good luck. He said, you have a nice day.
He won't be signing anything.
And he told me, he said, I was just as safe as I was home in my bed. He said, I knew
Harold told you that, yeah.
Yeah. He said, I knew you wasn't going to be signing.
I did too. I could have answered the form, saved him a whole lot of time and effort.
But I do, I wish right there at the end, I wish.
Do you think your dad would have talked to me at the
Yes.
end?
Yeah. Daddy was living with a lot of regret, and I'm sure that he didn't want, especially right there at the end, the reason Daddy would never tell on cases out of state. And I'm sure, you know, Billy Wayne Davis, you know, did cases with him and stuff like that. Daddy would never tell nothing out of state, because if he went to prison out of state, his family could never go see him. It's too far. You know, when he was in Illinois, you know.
That's a long way.
That's right.
Married, yeah. That was some prison. I remember going through 7 layers of bars with security to get to that. And Earl and I brought him back. I told you we had stopped in a restaurant. Took his handcuffs off, we all ate lunch together.
Yep.
I thought to myself later, I said, the folks in that restaurant would have never known
Well,
who we were bringing.
Well, just imagine you're in church on a Sunday night. The congregation didn't know that Billy Sunday Birt was walking through the back door.
Yeah.
And
To get baptized.
to get baptized.
Yeah.
And when they introduced my dad, the only bad thing about it,
Everyone would go under the piers.
it near about it, but Donald Chancey's wife was on the back pew, and she got up and walked out. And Daddy told me, he said, son, if I knew she was there, he said, I wouldn't have, he said, I would not have walked in. And he said, if I had walked in, he said, I asked Earl to let me have a minute with her so I could beg her for forgiveness.
Yeah. Well, he was changed at the end, and that's a good thing. And
Tell you a funny story about his baptism. A fellow named Dr. Skelton from Winder wrote 2 letters to Billy, witnessing to him, trying to bring him to Christ. And he threw the first one away, but he kept the second one and read it. You know. And so Doc Skelton was at his baptism, and Earl Lee had told Billy if he made one false move, he'd kill him.
Oh, absolutely.
And so
we both told her, Billy, that. Earl and I both did.
Billy was decided, he saw Doc in the congregation. He decided to walk down and thank him for that letter. And Doc's wife, at the time was Nora, said she saw Earl reach for his gun, but then watched him. He was only going to speak to Doc Skelton, thank him for the letter, but he thought if he tried to hit him with that door, he was a dead man. So,
And that was after you got him on the sibling case.
Oh, yeah.
And then, so that's why Earl Lee took him to Winder to church to be baptized?
He took him to Winder because he thought he ought to be baptized in his own church.
Right, exactly. So he went, and that's why the changes. But
what year was he baptized?
92.
Yeah, it was quite a long
I
time.
gotcha.
Yeah.
I'm gonna cut this off and conclude at 11:25 today.